Welcome to Access Amplified, the podcast where we shine a light on how digital health is increasing access to care and advancing equity across the world. I'm your host, Joanna Brownold, and our podcast is brought to you by Taito Care. In each episode, we sit down with healthcare leaders who are doing the work, not just reimagining access, but rebuilding it from the ground up. Today, I'm joined by Janna Guinen. Janna, thanks for joining me here today.
Thanks for having me, Jo.
Janna is the Executive Director of the Health Foundation, a nonprofit dedicated to advancing equity, inclusion, and opportunity in healthcare. And she's also the founding force behind the Techquity Health Initiative, a national movement focused on embedding equity into every stage of healthcare technology design and delivery. And actually, this is also the initiative that was part of the inspiration for this project, for Access Amplified. So a big thank you, Janna, for that. Let's start with the big picture. What does Techquity mean to you? And why is there so much focus on this from your organization? Why is it such an urgent priority in healthcare today?
Well, in its very most simple, Techquity is just a combination of technology and health equity. And it just means making sure that technology and data are designed, developed, and available to everyone, regardless of their income, where they live, their technology or their health literacy or any other factor. And it is just absolutely key. Technology is obviously something that's very important to access. You know, we learned that in the pandemic, but we can see it in many, many ways. And it's important as well to quality and efficiency. So the goal is to just make sure that it's true for all patients. We do have so many patients that are not as well served as we want them to be in healthcare, and technology is the solution. It just takes a dedicated effort to understand and work with patients who are not yet well served by our health system, who can be, and then as well the providers who are serving them. So specifically, we would call Techquity the focus on designing, developing, and distributing technology for underserved people. So it does focus on those underserved people. Why? Because medicine is completely amazing. Technology is completely amazing. But healthcare, it's too expensive. We're suffering from a labor shortage. We have an aging population. We have solutions to these things, right? So technology can be, this is a real podcast, Access Amplified, right? It's something we can do, we should do. And technology can lead also to speed, to effectiveness, and again, to personalization of care, that N of one feeling, that and an approach to using our data to make healthcare more effective for all of us. So that's what Techquity is about, and it's urgent in every possible way. I can't think of any way that's not urgent.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, like you said, that's kind of why we're doing this, why we're having this conversation, why we're running this podcast, because technology can be a silver bullet, but it needs to be a silver bullet for everyone, and not just for those people who already have access or might find it easier to use the technology. And I think, the Health Foundation has really positioned itself at the forefront of this conversation, in the work that you're doing, in the events that you host. Can you share how that kind of came to be? How did that focus happen? And also a bit around what your mission looks like in action.
Yes, happy to do that. So I came to the Health Foundation to work on equity. And then very early in my tenure here, I learned about the concept of Techquity, just the word Techquity, which I think it has such a like a visceral kind of meaning. People hear it and get it. And I heard about that from Dr. Kyu Rhee. He is the CEO of the National Association of Community Health Centers, which for anyone who doesn't know this aspect of U.S. healthcare, they serve 32.5 million people through community health centers across the United States. They have a mandate to serve people regardless of their ability to pay. So right now that looks like 1 in 10 people in the United States, and is projected to go to 1 in 3. I believe the number in rural areas, which when you think about access, we all understand why rural and access go together. I believe they're at 1 in 5 people. I've worked in innovation for a long time in healthcare, in a variety of ways. And so just Techquity was just sort of like, yes, that's the central idea. So we started doing some research, and it just evolved, like as things do. So around our mission, and So overall, we look at innovators and digital health purchasers, program implementers, policymakers, and established companies too, like huge companies and organizations, nonprofits, and how to get them to approach their work differently by just holding up great examples of Techquity. So an example of how, what does this look like is, first we decided to run the Techquity for Health Awards. And I'll say I have an excellent group of advisors who are really just embedded in this work and understand it also from all different perspectives, very diverse perspectives. It's a global competition. Applications are open. We're in our third year.
When do applications close?
August 29th. So I'm
Okay.
going to make the promo because I want anyone who's got anywhere across the world, if anybody is working around developing a new digital health tool, if they are implementing a tech-enabled health program, or just reimagining how health equity can be better served by data, then want to hear from you. So that's one thing that we do in order to understand, like we want to first hold up the work that people are doing that seems to be really effective. Although I will say we take both completed projects and works in progress because really it's about the thinking, right? It's a pretty extensive rubric that we use to score these. And we're taking these case studies and we're promoting and holding them up because when people are doing great work, we want to make that great work freely available and visible for the rest of the market. So the next piece is in a couple of weeks. I'm so excited to say this. We have developed, as far as we know, the first Techquity database in the world for healthcare, and it will be launching. It'll have some 70 something projects. They're all projects that we've scored to the awards program that we think have like high merit, right? That where there's so much to learn from these case studies. So that's a resource that's meant to shine a light on the good work that's being done as a help to the rest of the industry. And then we have a recommendation set for Techquity, which I'm going to just confess has been a long time coming. We've been sitting and we've had it, but haven't published it yet. That's also coming very soon. So that's kind of what the work looks like, and it's exciting.
So I think, first of all, it sounds like you're doing so much. So anyone who's listening, and if you have a project you want to submit, the deadline was, you said August 29th?
Yes, and I'm just going to say it out loud where to go for that information to get the application. It's healthfoundation.org, and you can find all the information that you need in the application. And, I just also want to say there's something more coming, and it's around how we can center innovation around the patients who can most benefit from Techquity, as well as the providers who serve them. So I can't wait to have that, and maybe you can have me back to talk about that.
So we're going to have you back, and exactly. And I'm going to put that link in the description as well, so that everyone should be able to click through to that.
Beautiful. I'm really enthralled by the idea and seeing how this works right through the Techquity Awards. I'm really excited about the idea of validating and scaling technologies like by, for, with the communities who can most benefit. And again, yes, we're talking about underserved populations, but I think the thing that doesn't always come across when we talk about Techquity is that it's not just for underserved people, it's for everybody. Right? First, let's get in hand better healthcare. I mean, in my view, it's a moral obligation. In my view, healthcare is a human right. And I think that we need to be doing that work. But what technology affords for us is the opportunity to develop better around that concept of the N of one, so that your healthcare Joe is exactly what you need and when you need it, how you need it, and mine based on my own health, and everybody's down the line. And that is the beauty of what technology can bring to it. We talk about personalized healthcare and precision medicine, and that's the end goal. It's better healthcare for everyone.
Yeah, totally agree. And we're doing it when we're seeing that in so many different fields already, right? Banking, finance, the ads that I get, which are about, one thing that I text to a friend 3 days ago and then terrifyingly start getting ads. So there is no reason that healthcare shouldn't be that personalized as well. I want to talk a little bit more about the database that you mentioned. What kind of examples are you spotlighting, and what is really what is the goal for healthcare leaders to take away from this?
Yes. Well, I'm going to say first off, the goal is for anyone who is developing, whether they're in a startup or a giant company, if they're developing a new digital health tool, if you're working in public health policy, if you're an implementer, so anybody who's purchasing technology to implement in a health program, it's for you. This is for everybody. The exciting thing about this is that we have submissions from every type of organization doing every type of work. Even in just the, years 1 and 2, we scored close to 300
Wow.
applications. They were
Wow.
from, government agencies, nonprofit organizations, digital health vendors, health systems, payers, right? So there's just a huge amount of work being done, and it's really exciting and inspiring to read it. But also it's because the reason is because it's going to be so helpful to that next person. We even had some people who submitted and asked us if we could please connect them with others. So that's a big piece of what we
Amazing.
want to do next in the
Great.
Techquity initiative, is to help connect people. And I'm hoping that this database will get there, help us to get there in the connection department.
I'm really excited to see that go live and to read it. So let's talk a little bit about the industry in general. So you, as you've just said, you're working kind of across so many different elements and people and organizations from across the industry. What are some of the most promising signs that you've seen? Tell us some happy stories, Janna.
Yeah, there are so many happy stories, and I'm not the only one who thinks that this is like the best time of the year. And I know that's the most nerdy thing. I am absolutely a nerd about healthcare, and I think the advisors, I say that in the nicest way, our advisors are the same. They feel too that it's such a sign of hope when you see people taking an interest. It's the depth of attention that is so inspiring. So from tiny little startups to huge payers, like I will take Elevance as an example, right? Elevance is a very large payer system, but they rethought their entire data structure inside the company and have made it a living work, really, around equity. So creating dashboards, collecting data in a new way, they're impacting already different areas of healthcare, maternal mortality, and the race-based differences in maternal and infant outcomes in the US is a really big thing.
Yeah.
But they're actually working in other areas too, because they've enabled the visibility into that. And when you see that, and when they can tell that story across an entire enterprise, where they have office hours, understanding that not everybody in their system is a data scientist or a database expert or whatever, right? They make it possible for anybody who has the question to try to answer that question through the data they have, or to help
That's
them
amazing.
collect and see, right, where are the issues that we could help to solve, and how are we doing, right, and the measurement. And so that's really amazing. It's amazing to see nonprofit organizations taking the time and the thought, right? So a lot of it, to me, the inspiration is about that. So it's the work that we're seeing coming in is one big thing. I could tell you many happy stories.
Okay.
I think many innovators as well are involving patients, and you can see this everywhere. We're only in like really very early stages, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of what can be done.
Yeah.
But when you start to involve patients and then users, which you're users of any particular tool or data in healthcare, they could be healthcare professionals, and they must be involved in that process. Patients might be a step back, but when you involve them, in some ways, they're always the end user, right, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
beneficiary in some way. So seeing that work is also very inspiring. And then there are groups like the Peterson Health Technology Institute. And I mentioned them because they're focusing on making digital health effectiveness information available across different sectors. Like they've studied musculoskeletal health vendors, right? And this is always a controversial thing to do, but it's a necessary thing to do, to understand how different tools are actually performing in the market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So to help purchasers make decisions. I'm inspired by this because they are also taking an interest in health equity, and the ability to reach equity around a tool or a program, right, is part of what they consider, right? So if you're purchasing digital health, are you thinking about equity? How are you asking those questions, right? Like, what should a buyer
Yeah.
understand? That's really, like, to me, that's really influential, and
Absolutely.
I'm excited about that. So I also think in the US, the resurgence of focus on health access and on rural healthcare are really positive for patients. And then finally, I'll say I'm getting another peek at companies in a different way. This year, Health Foundation is partnered with Health. They are running a health startup pitch tournament, which literally has 10 different startup pitches built into it, but one of them
Okay.
is the health equity pitch. So we are partnered with them on that pitch. I've been reading through the applications. It's just really exciting to see how companies who are coming out and saying, yes, we are focused on health equity, what are they doing right from the get-go? So
Right.
there's a lot in the market to feel really, and brewing that we can feel really excited about.
Thank you so much for sharing some of those stories. Again, I can't wait to kind of see the database come through. I can't wait to see the pitch competition and get inspired by some of these groups who are doing some of this amazing hands-on work. I want to kind of go back to Techquity for a minute. So something that you mentioned at the beginning was about intentionality in tech design. And that's something that, you and the Health Foundation really focus on.
Mhm.
And I think, for me, it makes a lot of sense, right? You need to have all of these elements in mind whilst you're designing. It can't be something that you kind of throw in afterwards to kind of hope that everyone's going to be able to access everything. But what are you seeing that look like in practice, and where are companies getting that right? Or maybe where they're getting it wrong? Are there lessons that we can learn from that as well?
Mhm. Yes. So, I mean, I think intention is always important. And in scientific terms, or I guess, if you want to think about what that means practically speaking, it's measuring it. So, right. And if you're going to measure something, then you're going to pay attention to it, right?
Mhm.
Hey, we're going to be scored on how we did XYZ. We better pay attention. So that intentionality is really important. I would say where I see a lot of organizations getting it right, at least in our applicants, and then there are plenty of examples of not getting it right, but it's always patience, right? Yeah, asking patients, who are you trying to serve? We think of them as the beneficiary population in pretty much every project. I'm sure somebody could come up with a project where maybe it's patients are not as relevant, but so far I haven't seen one.
Right. Well, I mean,
That's right,
that they
right?
are the end point of healthcare, right? At the end of the
There's
day, I
no
mean,
reason for healthcare. So, like
exactly.
again, I've been challenged to kind of find any project where asking patients what they need and what they value is a
Uh-huh.
bad idea.
Right. I
So,
mean, to me, this feels like a basic starting point of building any product,
mhm.
surely.
Yes. And so I think going beyond, sometimes they're your user. Maybe you're building for diabetes and you understand diabetes really, really well. That doesn't mean you understand the people with diabetes, does it? Right?
Right.
What do they value? What you're measuring may matter to you in clinical outcomes, but day to day, like I don't know about you, but as personally as a patient, I might be kind of concerned about what my stats look like numbers, right? For my general health, but really just day to day I just wanna live my life. I just
Yeah.
want my life to I wanna feel good. I want convenient healthcare that just doesn't take up a lot of my time or mental energy. I wanna focus on the good things. So,
Uh-huh.
in it so I think just right from the get-go, we have to realize that patients always have a different point of view than I'll say than we do in
Yeah.
healthcare, where we
Yeah.
have certain goals in mind for them. Well, what does that really mean? Like day to day, if you don't make it convenient, that is so tough, right?
Yeah,
It's
and
hard to
actually,
think
I would
about.
say that even like communities that are struggle to access healthcare are often the ones who are going to struggle to manage those conditions more, because we think, well, of course you'll be focused on managing your diabetes, and they're like, well, hang on a second, how am I getting my kids to school? My car, I don't have a car. I'm taking the bus. Like there is so many additional factors which I am privileged and I don't have to work out how to juggle in my life. But if I'm somebody from a group who's struggling to access healthcare, there's a chance I'm also struggling to access additional services. And
Mhm.
so my diabetes is not at the forefront of my mind. Who's looking after my kids when I'm doing my shift at my second job is at the forefront of my mind.
Right. Yes, absolutely. And of course, then, have to think about how we designed for providers too, who are just so burdened with
Yeah.
many, many things that they have to track. And providers are in healthcare because they want to give good care. They want to do a good job for patients. So how do we make it easier for them? I guess I would also add to the whole intention conversation. trust, which is something that I think people think of it as so woo-woo, but if you think about something that you don't trust, are you going to interact with it? Are you going to engage? Are you going to actually be truthful and share information that might, in the end, benefit you? I mean, probably not, right? So there are a lot of issues around trust in healthcare for different people for a lot of different reasons. But so I think there are companies who are really getting trust right in the way that they think about, and that again, that's about interacting and really deeply understanding who you're working with. The engagement over time is the biggest problem anyone has. I would actually argue that's the biggest problem we have as human beings just in life. We're not really apparently made for consistency.
For a long term. Yeah.
Right. We're all completely in the present, and which is great. And we need to be focused on a lot of reasons why our senses are built this way. But I think sustained attention is one of the biggest problems that we have. And so
Mhm.
going back is a huge opportunity for sustained engagement with that population. And that's what I wish vendors would do better. Go back and ask.
That's a really good lesson to learn. And I think vendors, and also kind of what you were speaking before about how the case studies that you're seeing, not all of them have to be finished. There's constantly opportunities to improve, even if you've finished your project, even if you've released your project, even if your program is live. Go back to the people who are using that, find out how they're feeling about it, what's working, what's not. Sorry, go
Can
on.
I tell you a story then, and then
Oh, yeah.
tell listeners a story about something? So how we came to be here, and when you talk about going back and asking again, one of our first year winners was Waianae Comprehensive Health Center. They're a community health center in Hawaii, and you told me this. This is like one of the reasons we're sitting here. So when you talk about inspiration, I'm truly excited by this. That one of the reasons you have this podcast is
Yeah.
because one of your executive team went to Vive, and that's where we host the Vive event, is where we host the awards, the Techquity for Health Awards, and came back and said, oh, we need to be thinking about this. Like, this is it also totally got this concept, right? That Title Care is working on this, but here's a way to think about it. And met Chrissy, right, from
Yeah.
Waianae Comprehensive
Yeah.
Health, and was inspired by her story. And again, that just, what's inspiring to me about all this is that the way one thing led to another, right? That
Yes.
Chrissy's work inspired your executive leader, which inspired a whole conversation, as you told me, inside of Title Care, to think about where and how, your own product is serving people. And
Mhm.
that eventually led to this
That's
podcast and us sitting here,
us.
which is great. And I
Yes.
have to tell you, this is so coincidental in the best way. I love when these things happen. But so when our database comes out, again, at the end of this month, we do have new user satisfaction and experience data from Waianae Comprehensive Health that was not
Really?
available, but she has continued to iterate and to ask. And so they have new information about how patients experienced,
Mhm.
her program, which was
Yeah.
in elderly folks.
Okay. Okay.
Yes,
That'll be.
it was around
Yeah.
access, telehealth, and I won't go into the whole thing. But again, this is what I mean, that when you start something and you put it out there, the most inspiring thing that can happen is that you see someone take it on and say, "Oh, okay, we're going to think differently, and then we're
Mhm.
going to do differently." And so
Yeah.
that's totally, that's totally exciting.
You can't help but be inspired. I mean, that is partly why we wanted to start this podcast, is to share these stories and hope that they inspire more people to take a look at what they're doing and do it from a more access friendly, equity friendly angle. And I'm so excited for the database to come out and do that same thing as well. Let's talk for a minute because we're running out of time. So let's talk about the future. Where do you see? I mean, obviously, technology is going to keep developing. What will it take for us to move from this kind of early momentum, piecemeal, in some cases, projects to sustained system-wide impact?
I mean, I think system-wide impact is a really big goal, although I love a big goal. So I'm excited about a big goal. I think it's going to take a lot of, for us, if I just think about what Health Foundation is doing, I think doing things like this, having conversations like this, I think continuing to push out those leadership case studies, showing people recommendations, and also inviting people to do the work without fear. Because I think, if you open up a whole set of recommendations and say, oh my God, this is so much time, this is so much money, or whatever you think, whatever your perception might be, right? We're trying to get people to understand to just start. Just start.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And we found that this can be done. Actually, it looks very cost effective in some cases for people to do this work. But I think system-wide impact comes from so many different places. So to me, we're just like one tiny point in all of it. When you think about all of the different people doing this kind of work, when you think about conversations around the world about making healthcare more effective, more sustainable, more accessible, right? I mean, you're on here
Mhm.
doing this podcast. There are so many people doing this work. I also think there's one other opportunity, but there are a lot of people who don't really get what we mean when we say health equity. Health equity just means everyone having the same opportunity for good health, right? We
Mhm.
all come in we're different people. We have different biology, whatever, but there's so many things that can get in the way. And just let's talk about rural and remote communities. It's a
Yeah.
really easy way for people to understand. When you think about that, and you pose the question, well, how do we bring care then to everyone? That's health equity, right? Well,
Right.
then the next question comes like, okay, well, what does that care look like? Is it efficient? Is it effective? How can it better work for each one of those people with all of their different life circumstances,
Mhm.
health conditions, family circumstances, economics, different languages, different understandings of technology, different levels of connectivity? That's health equity. That's
Right.
all it is. So
Right.
for people who are thinking, well, that has nothing to do with me, for people who think that health equity only applies to the minority of minorities, I think this is the opportunity, and how Techquity will grow is for people to understand that it's about every single one
Yeah.
of us, and
Exactly.
that potential. And why do we start with underserved people? Number one, because it's the right thing to do. And so many people are actually underserved by healthcare. Also, if you want to be really just sort of clinical about it, it's very high cost, right? When healthcare doesn't work for somebody, it's wasted. It's wasted time and resources. That person's health is maybe not getting better, or it's not improving as fast as it could, right? And it's high cost. And to me, that's a faster way to get to the moral imperative of just giving people better health
Yeah.
while still investing, still getting returns. So
Absolutely.
the idea of getting people to understand health equity is at the bottom of that.
I totally agree. I want to talk about you for a minute. You've been at the Health Foundation for nearly 5 years. You are the founding executive director. What keeps you inspired, and what are you most proud of in the work that you're doing? And the answer to this question could just be every single thing that we've just spoken about.
I mean, it doesn't take really anything to keep me inspired.
Right.
I think it's just the possibility of doing good. But what is always inspiring anyway, like without even needing it, it's just the people, right? People, I have met the most incredible people who are invested in change in such positive, such intelligent ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that is just plain inspiring. People are inspiring. You don't have to look far for that at all. As far as my pride in the work that the foundation is doing, I think that people are also, the main piece of that. You can't do anything alone, right? So
Right.
I'm really proud of the community of folks that I get to work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's truly an honor to me. And
Yeah.
yeah, I'm really proud of the people. And I will also say, we haven't spoken at all about our mentorship program. So Health
Okay.
Foundation runs a free mentorship program called C Sweetener, and it's exclusively healthcare focused. We have all volunteer mentors in the program. They all have 20 or more years of experience, and are just available to help with leadership and career development for women and non-binary people. And I'm really proud of having grown that program. This is a program that was acquired by Health Foundation just as
Mm-hmm.
I was coming in. It has a great founder. I wanted to keep up the good work, at least as soon. And she works with the American Heart Association Ventures Group
Okay.
and has just had a really outstanding career. And so I wanted to carry on her work in a way that would do her proud, I guess. but
Amazing.
also to do real good for
Yeah.
folks who are striving, that have goals, that are like, really talented people in healthcare, and to give them that opportunity to grow in their careers. And that does so much. And just talking for a minute about women, and partly because we don't really have a lot of data on non-binary people in the
Mhm.
workplace in healthcare, but women are still only, I think, a third of leadership. So we
Yeah.
work with women who are already somewhere in a mid-level role. These are the mentees in the program, who have about 10 years or more of experience. And the goal is to get them up into that upper echelon of leadership. And think what that does, right? That brings a much broader perspective to healthcare that we must have. Women are,
Mhm.
after all, just a teeny bit more than half of the
Of the population.
population. We're still the family influencers, and how healthcare is like consumed in a household,
Mhm.
and still not well represented in clinical trials. We're still we're still way behind in a number of ways. We have a lot of health outcomes and access issues that over our lifetimes that need to be addressed. And so it just makes sense to have more women in healthcare leadership. This mentorship, increases confidence, it promotions, job satisfaction and loyalty, all of these things. So when a woman has the opportunity to bring her talent at a higher level in any organization, that changes the financial trajectory for a whole lot of people that she's
Yeah.
bringing behind and around, and as well as health. So that's the thing that we know. It's the most basic thing, the connection between our personal economics, right, a socioeconomic status, and our health is really, really strong.
Mhm.
So when we make that change for a woman, we make that change for her, the people behind her, and then hopefully she's bringing, again, a perspective to healthcare that is not fully represented today. So that will ultimately, over the time with bigger numbers, change healthcare. So I'm
Yeah.
really proud of that program too, and it goes hand in glove with Techquity. So
Thank you so much for sharing, Janna. This has been a pleasure. I have loved speaking with you today. I hope that you've enjoyed
oh,
it
me
too.
too, Joe.
There's going to be a lot of links in the description of this episode. So people who are interested in going to read more about what Janna spoke about, please take a look there. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please be sure to follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes drop every 2 weeks. Please share this episode with a colleague who's passionate about digital health access or rethinking care delivery. Access Amplified is brought to you by Taito Care. I'm Joanna Brownald. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.